Chosen one, a lion never flinches when the jealous organize against it, because the predator already knows how the story ends. While you have been rising, a bitter, coordinated group has been investing real energy into your destruction. The betrayal is intimate. This family member is rotten and is part of this coven that has been meeting in secret to strategize against your light. This doesn't end with your defeat. It ends with your total sovereignty. It started quietly, the way all important things do. There was a feeling, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet and persistent hum underneath certain interactions, something that never quite added up. You would share good news and watch a face that smiled with its mouth, but not with its eyes. You would talk about something you were building, and feel the energy in the conversation shift in a direction you could not quite name. Certain questions got asked that felt less like curiosity and more like inventory. Who are you talking to? What are you working on? Where are you going next? What did that person say to you? You noticed it. And then, because you are a generous person, and because the idea of someone you loved doing something like this felt too painful to face, you let it go. You talked yourself out of the most accurate and precise intelligence you were ever going to receive about this situation. Your gut was not wrong. Your gut has never been wrong about this. That family member, the one whose behavior you kept trying to give a gentler explanation, was already inside the group, already reporting, already feeding a steady stream of information about your plans, your wounds, your relationships, and your movements to the coven. Every personal detail you shared became a coordinate on the coven's map. Every vulnerability you revealed became a target. Every dream you spoke out loud became something the coven tried to intercept before it could arrive in your life. And here is something you need to hold on to right now, because it matters by the time we reach the end. The more the coven learned about you, the more intelligence it gathered, and the harder it studied, the more confused it became. What the coven kept finding did not match what it expected to find. It expected weakness. It expected someone who could be leveled with enough pressure. What it kept finding instead was something it had no language for, something that protected itself without trying to, and something that kept growing no matter the season or the conditions. The coven did not understand it yet, but that not understanding was already the beginning of its end. This coven is built around one person, a leader, someone who has positioned themselves as the most spiritually advanced, the most knowledgeable, and the most powerful presence in any circle they enter. The pitch to every recruit was simple: follow me, do what I say, and together we will get what we want. The leader presented as someone with connections, with access to information and techniques unavailable to ordinary people, and with the ability to deliver results. And the result they promised was you, brought down. You exist, and you move through the world in a way that makes the leader feel small, not because you are trying to diminish anyone. You are not even thinking about these people most of the time, but something about how you carry yourself, how your gifts show up naturally, how people gravitate toward you, and how things tend to work in your favor, even through difficult seasons. All of that maddened the leader. It became an obsession, and obsession, when it goes dark, builds organizations. So the coven recruited. It brought in people who carried grievances, and people who wanted what you have. It gathered people who were willing to sacrifice something in exchange for the promise of power. And then it brought in the most valuable asset of all, someone already close to you, someone with access, someone who could move through your life without raising suspicion. The family member was the crown jewel of the operation, and the coven treated that person accordingly, made them feel special and elevated, like a trusted insider. The sacrifice of a genuine relationship with you was sold to the family member as a worthwhile trade for what would be received in return. Here is what nobody told the family member, though. The leader never intended to deliver on that promise. Leaders of pyramid schemes never do. The entire architecture depended on keeping everyone just satisfied enough to stay, and just hungry enough to keep performing, including the person positioned closest to you. Remember that. We are coming back to it. Since we are inside this wound, let us go a little deeper. You deserve to understand, not just what the family member did, but why, not to excuse it, but to dissolve the question that has probably been sitting quietly in the back of your mind since you began to see the truth. What did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. The family member had a pre-existing attachment to the coven leader, a loyalty, a bond or a dependency that ran deeper than any loyalty to you. The leader was meeting a need that the family member carried. Maybe it was the need to feel powerful, or the need to feel chosen, or the need to belong to something that felt bigger than an ordinary life. Whatever form that need took, the leader had leverage over the family member, and when the leader named you as the target, the family member did not hesitate long enough. If this message activated your knowing, hype this video to connect with more chosen ones on this journey. But here is the thing about people who still think of themselves as decent. Nobody does something like this without constructing a justification first. So the family member built one. Internally, in their private narrative, you were accused of holding things back, of being less authentic than you appeared, of having gifts that were overrated, or protection that was undeserved. Every imperfect moment from your shared history got inflated into evidence for the prosecution. The family member needed that internal narrative, the way a crumbling structure needs scaffolding, not because it was true, but because without it, the whole thing collapses under its own weight. The family member believed they were delivering useful intelligence. What was actually being delivered with every report and every update passed back to the coven was confirmation that you were more protected, more gifted, and more fortified than the leader had anticipated. Every report deepened the coven's confusion, rather than giving it a clear path forward. The person sent in as a spy was feeding intelligence that kept proving the target was untouchable, and had no idea that is what was happening. And when the campaign started failing, the leader did not say this was my fault. Leaders like this never do. Instead, the leader implied that the intelligence must have been incomplete, that maybe the family member had not gotten as close as claimed. The person who gave up a genuine relationship with you to play that role found themselves being questioned about whether the role was even played well. That is the specific kind of betrayal that comes from following someone who never intended to pay what was promised. The family member is now in a position that nobody prepares for, too far in to admit what happened, too close to the fallout to pretend it is not being felt, and too proud to walk back and tell you the truth. That person is not at peace, and that is not something you need to engineer. It is simply where those choices landed. What came at you was not a random spray of negative energy. It was targeted and strategic, and understanding exactly what was aimed at you and why helps you see something remarkable, how little of it actually landed. Your voice was the primary target. The way your words land on people, the trust and credibility you carry when you speak, and the way your communication builds relationships, income and influence, that was the first thing in the crosshairs. If your voice could be discredited, if people could be made to question whether you were who you seemed to be, then the coven believed that everything your voice was holding up would collapse along with it. Fake interactions may have been created to paint you as less than you are. Whisper campaigns may have been run to people in your orbit, planting seeds of doubt before those people had a chance to experience you directly. Your finances were the second target. The strategy was to manufacture enough financial pressure to destabilize you, to make you too stressed to think clearly, too depleted to keep building, and too desperate to maintain the sharp discernment that has always kept you protected. A person scrambling under financial pressure is much easier to manipulate than a grounded, resourced and focused one. The coven needed you in survival mode. Your creative energy was the third target. The part of you that generates, creates, plays and connects was supposed to be flooded with so much chaos and emotional noise that the signal of your own inspiration could no longer break through. A person who cannot create cannot build, and a person who cannot build cannot rise. I must interrupt this transmission for just a moment. Are you really chosen? Prove it. It's easy to watch videos about chosen ones. It's another thing to put yourself to the test. If you're still here, that means something, but talk is cheap. Real chosen ones take action, and real chosen ones are also paying attention. You've noticed it. Chosen one channels getting silenced, videos pulled, voices removed from the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice, and neither should you. That's why joining Destiny Engine is a 360 win. You support your favorite channels and fuel your own rise at the same time. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve divine justice. The beauty is you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and watch your enemies choke on the rope their own lies created. If you're done consuming and ready to prove you're chosen, start your Destiny Engine for $7 today. Join the Obsidian Inner Order live checks and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. The fourth target is the one that should make you sit up straight. The Coven tried to manufacture a repeating cycle, build you up and then knock you down, build you up and knock you down again, not as a single attack but as a sustained rhythm designed to exhaust you into believing that instability was simply the nature of your life. The goal was to get you to accept a diminished version of yourself as a permanent condition and to stop expecting that good things were coming. Every single one of these campaigns failed, not partially, but fully. The reason they failed, though, is not what you might expect. It was not your cleverness. It was not even your resilience, as real as that is. It was something else entirely, something the Coven could not anticipate and could not defend against. That something is about to be revealed. Pay attention, because this is where everything turns. After the campaigns produced no results, after the family members' intelligence failed to translate into victories for the Coven, and after every attempt to crack your life open kept bouncing back, the leader made a move. Outside help was needed. The goal was to find someone with real capability, someone who could go into your energy field and locate the vulnerability, find the entry point, and provide a way in. So the Coven paid someone, a practitioner, someone who works in the space of energy and spiritual access, and who for the right price would point that gift at a target and deliver a detailed report. That practitioner sat down to begin the work and reached toward your energy, and then that practitioner stopped. The stopping had nothing to do with a lack of skill. It had everything to do with what was already there. The moment that practitioner's gift pointed in your direction, something was waiting, something large, something ancient, and something completely unimpressed by the practitioner's credentials or the Coven's money. It did not negotiate, did not explain itself, and left zero ambiguity about whether access would be granted. Access was not granted. The practitioner backed away and delivered a message to the Coven. This person cannot be accessed, not will not, cannot. Something is guarding this person's energy, and it is not something worth pushing against. The practitioner wanted no part of what the Coven was asking. Chosen one, let that land fully. The Coven hired a professional whose entire value was the ability to penetrate energetic fields and deliver intelligence. That professional looked at what surrounds you and said, "Absolutely not. That is not a minor thing. That is a thunderclap. That is the universe making itself known without any ambiguity at all. You are covered by something that even people who operate in darkness recognize and are unwilling to challenge." When the practitioner walked away, the leader faced a decision. Telling the truth, that your protection is something this Coven cannot breach, would dissolve every ounce of authority the leader had accumulated. So the leader lied. The group was told that the practitioner simply lacked enough skill. that the refusal was about the practitioner's limitations and not your strength. A massive defeat got repositioned as a minor inconvenience, and everyone was instructed to stay focused and trust the process. A lie that sighs, though, carries a cost that collects interest. The people inside the coven who had already been quietly questioning, the ones who had sacrificed real things and had not seen real returns, heard that explanation and felt something shift. Not everyone walked away immediately, but something in them began doing the accounting. What was promised against what was delivered? How many times the explanation for failure pointed somewhere other than the leader, and how the demand for more sacrifice kept arriving without any corresponding arrival of results. The leader's response to that internal shift was to demand more energy, more commitment, more sacrifice. The reason nothing had worked yet, the group was told, was because the group had not gone far enough, had not been unified enough, had not committed fully enough. This is a manipulation as old as false leadership itself. When results do not come, blame the followers for not following hard enough, make the failure belong to them, and make the solution simply more of what already failed. Some people in the coven complied. They gave more, and they got the same result. Energy returned to them, chaos landing back in their own lives, and you still standing exactly where you were. Others began leaving, not dramatically, but quietly, just stopping, pulling back and doing the private arithmetic of someone who recognizes a losing investment and decides to stop putting good energy after bad. The coven is smaller now than when this all began. The people who remain are the most desperate, which makes them the most agitated, but also the least precise. Desperation does not produce accuracy. Desperation produces noise, and noise cannot reach what is protecting you. There is something happening to the leader right now that you need to understand fully, not for the satisfaction of it, but because understanding it keeps you from underestimating what might still be pointed in your direction. The leader's obsession with you has become unsustainable. This is not the casual jealousy of someone who sees your wins and feels a brief sting. This is the consuming, resource-depleting, relentless kind of obsession that belongs to someone who has made you the entire explanation for everything that has gone wrong in their life. In the leader's mind, you are the obstacle between them and everything they believe is rightfully theirs. And because every tool deployed against you has failed or backfired, the obsession is now feeding on itself rather than producing anything useful. Here is the real cost of that kind of obsession. Every hour spent studying how to get to you is an hour not spent building anything real. Every resource burned trying to stop your progress is a resource that could have gone towards something of actual value. While all of this was being organized against you, you kept building and you kept growing. The gap between what you have built and what the leader has managed to build is not smaller because of the attacks, it is larger. The leader fell behind while trying to pull you back, and now looks at that gap and adds it to the growing list of things that are somehow your fault. This is why it will not stop easily. The obsession is self-perpetuating. The more it fails, the more it needs to win, and the more it needs to win, the more it invests in the very behaviors that keep producing failure. It is a trap the leader built and stepped into at the same time. The only exit requires admitting something the ego will not permit, being wrong about you, wrong about themselves, and wrong about the ability to control something that was never theirs to touch. You do not need to break free from this person's obsession, you just need to keep building. Because every day you keep building while the obsession stays frozen in place, the contrast between your trajectory and theirs becomes more undeniable. The people still loosely loyal to that leader will eventually see what you already see, that the most lost person in any situation has always been the one pointing the most fingers. In the wake of the coven's collapsed campaigns, a new figure enters the picture. This person approaches with warm energy, steady and calm, the kind of presence that makes you want to exhale and trust. An offer comes with them, a collaboration, a partnership, an extended hand that looks like exactly the kind of alignment you have been working toward. This person presents as someone who has done real inner work, who has moved away from darkness, and who wants something genuine with you. Do not let the warmth lower your guard. This person is connected to what was built against you, not necessarily as a true believer, because they may genuinely want distance from the coven's world, but they are still carrying something underneath the offer. What looks like abundance has a hook embedded in it. That hook is designed to do quietly what the coven could not do loudly, move something from your life into theirs through an agreement you did not fully see coming. Here is how you will recognize it. When you are near this person, your body will want to protect itself, even while your mind is finding reasons to stay open. That split, the part of you that wants to lean in, and the deeper part that quietly says wait, is your protection speaking. It is the same intelligence that your gut was offering you at the very beginning of all of this. It was accurate then, and it is accurate now. Real alignment does not produce that kind of internal split. Genuine collaboration feels expansive and clean, easy to breathe inside of. What this person brings will feel appealing on the surface, but progressively harder to sustain the longer you remain in it. Your calibration will know the difference. Trust your calibration. Here is what you need to understand about the discernment you have developed through all of this. It is not damage. It is not the residue of hurt, hardening into suspicion. It is precision, a finely tuned instrument that the coven actually forged for you, unintentionally and against its own interests, by flooding your life with so many counterfeit versions of connection, collaboration and care, that your internal system learned to detect the false thing before your conscious mind can even articulate why. You are not closed to people now. You are specific, you are accurate, and that accuracy is going to protect everything that is on its way to you. The coven organized to study you and found that you cannot be studied. It sent energy to drain you and found that energy return home. It hired a specialist and found a guardian that specialist would not engage. It deployed a family member to access you from the inside and found that the most important parts of who you are, the parts that actually generate your power, were never accessible even to someone sitting directly across from you. It built an entire operation on the promise of your destruction and found that operation collapsing inward on itself. And yet here you are, still building, still rising, still receiving. That is not resilience. Resilience implies you barely made it through. What you demonstrated is domination. You dominated this situation without even knowing the full scope of what was being coordinated against you, and you did it by simply being who you are fully, without apology, with your protection intact and your gifts active. You did not fight the coven. You did not even have to. You simply refused to be diminished, and that refusal, quiet, uncompromising and continuous, is what dismantled the operation. Now watch what opens. Your voice is being heard at a volume and with a reach that was not present before the attacks began. The credibility that was targeted is not just intact, it is stronger because it survived deliberate challenge, and people can feel the difference between something that has been tested and something that has not. Your financial channels are clearing and widening, not trickling back to a previous level, but restructuring into something more direct, more aligned and more sustainable. Your creative energy, which the coven tried to poison with chaos and emotional noise, is surging back and bringing with it new directions that the previous chapter of your life did not have space to contain. The relationships that matter are clarifying, the genuine ones are deepening, and the ones that were never real are completing and falling away, as if the universe is simply doing precise and necessary maintenance. The family member is watching all of this from the distance they chose. That person participated in the attack on your life, and now the only available position is observer, watching from outside as your life builds into something more complete than what existed before any of this began. That is not punishment administered by anyone external. That is consequence arriving on its own schedule. What was sown is what grew. Betrayal grew its own harvest, and integrity grew its own harvest, and the difference between those two harvests is becoming visible in ways that require no explanation from you. The attacks are over, not because the leader chose to stop, but because the mechanism that made the attacks possible is broken. The inside access is gone, the outside help refused, the coven's resources are depleted, and its internal credibility is destroyed. There is nothing left to throw. What was thrown has already returned to its senders. The battle is over. You won, not loudly but completely. What protected you is not a technique. It is not a ritual performed correctly, a practice maintained without interruption, or a formula discovered through the right set of circumstances. The protection around you is a relationship, the relationship between who you actually are at the level of private choices made when no one is watching, and the force that responds to that kind of authenticity with active covering. You kept giving when giving was not convenient. You kept creating when the creative channel was under direct attack. You kept showing up even in seasons when you were running low. You kept choosing integrity when compromise would have been easier and no one would have known the difference. You kept getting back up, not for an audience, not heroically, just because something in you refused to accept a smaller version of yourself as a permanent address. That quality is what the intelligence on your side recognized. That is what was locked onto and covered. Not you as a performance, but you as an actual, living, choosing, building reality. Here is why the coven could never crack it. The coven was looking for a formula, something it could locate, steal, replicate, or counteract. The practitioner was sent specifically to decode the protection. That practitioner came back, unable to even approach it closely enough to analyze it, because the protection is not a thing that exists around you. It is a thing that is you. You cannot steal someone's protection when that protection is the person's actual character operating at full expression. You cannot replicate what only functions when it is genuine. The throne that belongs to you was assigned before this coven formed, before the family member made a choice, and before the first scheme was organized. No group built on jealousy, no practitioner hired for money, no betrayal from someone close. None of it is equipped to revoke what was assigned. The choosing happened at a level where human schemes simply do not operate. You were chosen. The protection is the evidence, and the evidence has been accumulating throughout this entire situation, whether you were watching for it or not. Let us look at where the coven stands now. Not with vengeance, not with celebration, but with clarity, because a chosen one does not revel in destruction. A chosen one watches consequence arrive and understands what it is saying. The leader is losing authority. The promises made have been exposed as hollow by the simple accumulation of time and absent results. Every resource that was spent is gone. Every relationship sacrificed in the pursuit of your destruction is gone. What remains is a smaller and more fractured group, a depleted account of credibility, and the specific humiliation of having organized a full operation against someone and then watching that someone rise anyway. The leader will try new angles, will seek new recruits, and will construct new justifications, but the mechanism is irreparably damaged. The inside access is gone, the outside help refused. The returned energy is working against the people who sent it, and every new attempt costs more than the last, while producing less. The family member is in a particular kind of reckoning, one that does not require your involvement. That person did not just choose a side. That person chose to believe something about you that was not true, and participated in building harm on the foundation of that belief. Every day that passes, every opening in your life, every recognition that arrives, all of it accumulates as quiet and continuous evidence against the justification that was constructed to make the betrayal feel acceptable. Maintaining that justification gets harder in direct proportion to how visibly well you are doing. You do not need to confront that person. You do not need to expose anything. Your life is doing both of those things on your behalf continuously and without any effort from you. When a pipe under pressure is finally cleared, the water does not simply flow, it rushes. The pressure that built up during the blockage has nowhere to go but forward, and it moves with the accumulated force of everything that was held back. That is exactly what is happening right now with everything that was held back from you. Income is arriving through channels that connect directly to what you were built to do, not through grinding against resistance, but through alignment, the natural meeting of genuine gifts with the people who genuinely need them. The manufactured delays in this area did not prevent anything permanently. They built pressure, and that pressure is now releasing as abundance. Your voice is finding its true reach. The people who were supposed to hear you are hearing you now with a clarity that interference was previously muffling. That connection between what you carry and the people it was always meant to reach is not a product of any campaign or strategy. It is simply what happens when the static is removed and the signal runs clean. Genuine connections are entering your life through channels the coven never mapped and cannot access. These are people who arrive without hidden terms, people who meet you where you are without an invoice attached to the warmth. Someone specific is coming or has already begun appearing at the edges of your orbit, who is going to shift the texture of your daily experience in ways you were not anticipating. This is not a rescue. This is a real and equal meeting between two people who are supposed to find each other, and something is leaving. A situation, a dynamic, or a chapter that has been occupying your energy is completing itself. Let it complete without grief. What departs was always a passage and not a destination. What arrives was built for the version of you that came through the fire, not for who you were before this began. The universe is clearing space with precision, and what is arriving to fill that space is something you will recognize in your body the moment it appears. Chosen one, this is the part where we stop looking at what happened and turn fully toward what comes next. Stop investigating. Stop trying to confirm every detail of who knew what. Stop examining every relationship through the lens of suspicion, looking for additional traitors. You know enough. The protection has handled what you could not see, and it is still handling it. Every hour spent in detective mode is an hour not spent in builder mode. Your assignment is not to expose the coven. Your assignment is to build at a level that makes exposure unnecessary, because the evidence of your rising speaks louder than any accusation ever could. Stop explaining yourself to people who received a false narrative about you. Your life is going to do the explaining. Results are the only argument that lands with the people who actually matter. Your character does not need your defense, it needs your demonstration. Let the work carry the argument. Stop waiting to feel fully safe before you begin receiving. The safety is already established. You navigated the most organized attack of your life, and you are here whole, clear, and still moving forward. That is not the survival of someone who barely made it. That is the testimony of someone whose foundation was never actually reachable by what was thrown at it. Step into receiving from that position, from the position of someone who knows with full certainty that what is covered stays covered. The throne is not a reward for a perfect season. The throne is a decision, the decision to carry yourself like someone who knows their worth right now, in this moment, before everything has arrived and before everything has fully resolved. It is the decision to stop auditioning for your own destiny and start inhabiting it. It is the decision to open your hands and let what was held back come in, rather than standing at the threshold waiting for one more confirmation that you deserve it. You have earned this. You went through what was built against you. Now receive what was always being built for you. At the beginning of all this, you had a feeling you could not fully name. You had a sense that something extraordinary was happening, both in the threat and in the protection, but the complete picture had not yet assembled itself into something you could see clearly. You were already chosen at the beginning. The protection was already active. The guidance was already operating. The ancestors were already invested. You simply did not yet have the confirmation that it was all real and all working. Now you have that confirmation. What was being opposed is you fully alive, fully expressed, and fully positioned inside the calling that was placed on your life before any of this began. Your voice is clear and reaching. Your finances are flowing and widening. Your relationships are genuine and deepening. Your creative energy is surging and directing itself toward new territories. Your joy is returning and establishing itself as a baseline rather than an occasional visitor. Your mind is sharp, your back is straight, your guidance is active, and your discernment is precise. That is what the coven feared. That is what all of the drama, this family member going rotten, the coven meetings, the hired practitioner, the whisper campaigns, the coordinated attacks, was organized to prevent from arriving in full. It did not work. Everything that was blocked is now arriving, carrying the accumulated force of what was pressurized during the blockage, louder than it would have been if it had simply been allowed to flow freely, and more established than it would have been if there had been no resistance to prove itself against. The coven built your testimony. It provided the contrast that makes the victory visible, and the victory is not approaching, it is here. So here is what you do with everything you now know. You straighten your back, you open your hands, you lift your head, you look at everything moving toward you, the income, the connections, the recognition, the creative surge, the aligned love, the open doors, and you receive it like someone who always knew they were chosen. Because you were, before the coven formed, before the family member made a choice, before the first scheme was organized, before a single move was made against you. You were chosen before any of this began. The fire was never theirs to put out. It was never even theirs to threaten. The fire is yours. It has always been yours, and it is burning now with the specific, brilliant, and unstoppable heat of something that has been proven by fire. Go build, go receive, go rise. The end is written for them. The beginning is here for you. And chosen one, you are always, always ready for this.